So my name is Fred Gonzalez. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the general manager for Long Island Village. We have the board of directors and some of the board directors in attendance today and some of the staff. So we thank them for setting up and helping coordinate this event. At the annual meeting, it was requested, I put up some pretty shocking information on that day, and it was requested, and very good idea obviously, to have a meeting like this put together to be able to provide the detailed information that you're looking for regarding infrastructure. So I put just a couple of slides together to give you some basic information about what we're talking about. And the topic is infrastructure, Long Island Village. Long Island Village has originally started as an outdoor resort, as some of you may recall. It was an RV park that was set up somewhere back in the 70s. The infrastructure, including water, sewer, and electric, was installed to provide service to an RV park, not a residential community, which this has grown into. We have a little over 1,000 lots. Who would have expected that many homes, beautiful homes, by the way, in this beautiful community? The existing infrastructure has remained the same since. We have some of the problems include aging infrastructure, obviously. We have sewer systems that are being overwhelmed. The park was initially never designed, like I said, for full-time residential use. Lift stations are in poor condition, sewer manholes. Some have even collapsed in the past. Sewer lines, similar condition, poor condition. Homes built over sewer manholes. Who would have ever thought that would be the case? And can't access these manholes and clean them out whenever you have clogs. Very difficult to get to and work on. Homes built over main water supply lines. Again, when issues like this occur, water leaks are going on constantly in the park. Water line underneath your home, very hard to get to and repair or troubleshoot, not to mention all the other hardscape and improvements that have gone on throughout the built out of that home. So again, we have to do a lot of demolition, a lot of damage to your existing structure, all because that water line should have been located in an easement where it's always accessible and causes less damage to your property. We have water leaks, obviously, throughout the park. There's a couple of main water meters that are running constantly because no one really knows where these water leaks are until somebody reports them or they're noticeable, get a sinkhole, etc. We have, and then last but not least, we don't have the necessary commercial equipment. Like, for example, in the background there, Laguna comes to the rescue every time I sound the alarm to say, help, come and help us try to clean out these drain lines. So some of the major components, of course, we have a couple of main water meters. The golf course is independently metered. We have 4 lift stations that control sewage from the entrance to the park. Obviously, the condos and the neighbors along with this, and pump it out to Port Isabel, the Laguna Water District through the channel in the back. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have water and sewer lines scattered throughout. I wish I had a red line spaghetti model to show the AT&T network or Verizon network all over this park. So there are no as-builds, so who knows? Those are some of the water leaks that the team and I kind of go through and are faced with challenges every day. Some are, like I said, you have to tear out somebody's back patio just to find the water line going through there. Who knows how long that water leak's been going on until somebody reported or heard or saw a symptom of it. We have some sewer problems today. Lift station 2 had a main component, the pump, burned out, stopped working. Obviously that controls the influx of sewer from point A to point B. So it becomes very critical. The guys did a great job. It turns out we did have a replacement pump for it. So again, repairs are going on constantly. The side pictures on the right will show an example of someone having a manhole inside their basement. So again, it's kind of hard to get heavy equipment, et cetera, to be able to work in these tight spaces to clear out these lines when it's affecting 30, 40, 100, couple of hundred homes possibly with sewer backups. This was the shocking piece. That was estimated cost based on the information that Laguna Water District had given us in the past. These are all very preliminary numbers. And so that was, I'm sure Charles, Mr. Ortiz will provide more detailed information regarding those numbers in a little while, along with the bond finance representative. So at the end of the day, all I'm saying is that it's not nice and rosy out there. It's not peachy. It's not perfect. There are issues that go on LIV daily. It's just, they're behind the scenes. These folks have come in to try to help Long Island Village, Laguna Madre Water District, Randy with SWG Engineering, previous boards, current boards. This has been a long, long road in trying to do, make improvements to LIV in a way where it could help everyone, and making sure that the infrastructure keeps working for everyone and your families. Special bond election for new infrastructure and streets will be held on May 7th. It'll take the voting will take place at Portisville City Hall from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Bottom line, we ask for your support on that. So next up is Randy with SWG Engineering. He'll be presenting some information for you as well.
Well, good afternoon, Randy Winston with Sigler Winston Rear or SWG Engineering. It's a pleasure to get to be able to talk to everybody about this. This is, like Fred was saying, this is a project and discussion we've been having for quite some years. It's a very interesting project. It's great to get to this point. I'm going to just repeat this or say this right now and then kind of repeat it as we get further on. Is we're getting to the point. It's a joint cooperation. Look at all the time and effort it took to get here. We've not only got cooperation at LIV, the board, but Laguna Madre stands here as a partner within this project too, which is so important. And you know, we've got a means to be able to remedy these situations and move forward. It is a big project. So let me kind of go through this here and like I said, let me go through it real quickly here. And again, if there's any questions, save them to the end, and I'll be more than happy to try to address them. So let me go through our infrastructure. Wheel. There we go. Okay. I was just going to point out a couple of things here. We have been working and coordinating with the LIV board, general manager, and Laguna Madre, and with Water Development Board too. They're another partner within here. We've presented and received authorization from the Laguna Madre formal board action to file the preliminary information forms, which are actually Water Development Board applications for fundings and such. So we've been moving along with that. We have done most of the site surveying and preliminary plans developed with cost estimates required to complete the application. So those have been done and in place. These applications, or we call preliminary information forms, were uploaded for the water and wastewater to the Water Development Board on the day Laguna Madre approved the submission of the PIFs. We've also met with board meetings back on 5/7/21 to initiate the discussion of the project. So, and to continue on here, we met with the financial group, Estrada Hinojosa, Bond Counsel, Noel Valdez, and ourselves back on 5/24/21. We've updated cost estimates to current costs because of inflationary budgetary numbers that have increased tremendously over time. We've also taken this to the board, and the board with Laguna Madre accepted this project and has proceeded with the Bond Counsel and financial advisors to go to the election for the May 7th, 2022 for approval. And again, I'm just going to repeat again, this partnership between LIV and Laguna Madre with us here has been great. So I'm happy to progress it to this point. That's a small slide. This is what we call clean water, and the next slide is drinking water. This is just showing that the applications have been uploaded with Water Development Board, and the previous one has been ranked, and we have rolled forward these applications for current years. This is again a real small number. The slide's small, but it's just to illustrate the great rates that Water Development Board can provide through Laguna Madre as your partner in here for funding of these projects. So this is your clean water rates, and they're very good numbers, and I'm not going to try to go through all these here at this point, but I'll let our finance guy go through this also and discuss this in detail. I just wanted to kind of put this up here and show these rates. So kind of some of the milestones, the preliminary design phase has been complete, a lot of the final design phase has been complete, and of course we're at the point of the funding, working with Laguna Madre to take over the project for LIV to take it, the funding, go out for bids, and procurement of your contractor moving forward. So those items still need to be happening. But what is this project? What's it going to entail? Really, just like Fred said, almost every one of your lines out there is going to need to be replaced. The majority of the line work is in areas that need to be replaced. A lot of the line work does not have fire hydrants, fire protection. So that's one of the other major items that's within here too, not only the line work, but the fire hydrants too. Sewer lines, kind of the same thing, again, taking them out from under the lots or along the seawall areas and moving them back to the road. And one of the things I need to make sure and point out is within the budgets are not only the water, the wastewater, the fire protection, but also the repaving of all the streets is all within the numbers here too. Just like Fred mentioned, you have 4 primary lift stations within here. Within the budget are numbers to go in and rehab these lift stations and bring them up to compliance, because before we turn them over to Laguna Madre and have them accepted, they need to have them approved, inspected, and certified that it's meeting their minimum standards. And so that's going to be certainly important with that. And I want to repeat one thing. If I had said it again, one of the major items in here is Laguna Madre is taking over the water, the wastewater, the maintenance of everything within this whole project. So that is such an important factor to again have that partnership, because from this point on, once it's approved and voted on and approved and funded and put in the ground, then LIV will not have to ever worry about those again. So summarization, the Laguna Madre will take over the project, including the finalization of the design. They will oversee the construction. They'll maintain the lines once accepted. LIV will have new water and fire protection. LIV will have a new sanitary sewer system and updated lift stations. LIV will have new paved streets where the utilities have been placed in them. Partnership with the Laguna Madre enables us to seek funding from the Water Development Board, because otherwise we couldn't do this on our own and receive those rates. Water Development Board provides some of the lowest interest rate loans and possible grants for these type of projects. Excuse me. The 2 primary applications with Water Development Board is for water and for the wastewater. Each one has potential loan, or grant or loan forgiveness within there too. So each one's got a potential for that. And I think Charles is going to address some of that in his slide presentation too. So I'm just going to say, make sure, please go out and vote for this. And that concludes my presentation there.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Charles Ortiz, District Engineer for the Laguna Madre Water District. Been employed at the district for the past 10 years, and here we are able to bring a ballot concerning Long Island Village here on May 7th for the election to get these water and sewer improvements that are much overdue, as part of our public system. And so, let me see if I can get the slides going here. There we go. All right, so we do have the draft ballot already proposed. This is the language you'll see on the election day. It reads Laguna Madre Water District, Proposition A for Long Island Village defined area. Designation of Long Island Village defined area as part of the action, and the issuance of $20,800,000 in bonds to expand and improve the district's waterworks system and sewer system in the Long Island Village defined area. Taxes sufficient to pay the principal of interest on the bonds will be imposed. So it's the decision for or against this action will be on the ballot for May 7th. And so this is our timetable for the May 7th election. Our current registered voters list, it's being administered by Cameron County. We have about 412 registered voters within our defined area at this time. The last day to get your residency here and be registered to vote is on April 7th, 2022. And it will be through the Cameron County Elections Administrator. By April 14th, 2022, our district publishes the notice of the election in English and Spanish. Early voting begins April 25th, 2022, and last day to submit application for ballot by mail is April 26th. And then early voting begins May 3rd, and May 7th is our election day. And the ballot will be double-sided. You'll see this item on the back side of the ballot, so make sure you're checking both sides. And there has been a lot of talk about grants. The way it's really worded is being eligible for disadvantaged community status. So we are going to be pursuing the disadvantaged eligibility with Texas Water Development Board. And at this point, the deadline for state fiscal year 2023 was March 3rd. We did submit both the request for water and sewer. And based on our estimates, we're looking at an estimated principal forgiveness of 30% for water and an estimated principal forgiveness of 50% for sewer. So the prior numbers that have been given in Fred's presentation assume no forgiveness, full repayment. And so if we can accomplish any of these principal forgiveness, that'll reduce the tax burden accordingly. But at this point, it's really unknown. Let me read off the standard language on the form. The estimated eligible principal forgiveness percentage is not a final determination. Disadvantage information is subject to Texas Water Development Board staff review. Actual principal forgiveness amounts will depend upon a project's disadvantage determination, ranking, and the availability of funding. And again, this disadvantage determination will not be made prior to the election. So the amount of this job is the $20,800,000. And that's pretty much what I have for slides. So that's concludes my presentation. And I suppose our financial advisor, yeah, I believe I have the PDF files here. And I'm headed over.
We're kind of waiting for our bond counsel to come in. I'm Carlos Galvan, General Manager for Laguna Madre Water District. And just like Fred has been saying, that Laguna Madre Water District is here to help. And we've been helping out with vacuum trucks, sewer line plugs, or in any way that we can help, even going to the extent of reducing their monthly payments at certain times when it goes too high, not knowing where the water leaks are at, and sometimes they're under the deckings, and you cannot see those water leaks until one day you're probably out there and you'll see it coming out. But it's hard to pinpoint those water leaks, and I'm pretty sure that there's some right now that are not detected. And then again, on the forgiveness loans, I believe that my engineer had mentioned to me earlier that we will be pursuing that every year, because it's open every year for that purpose. We kind of expedited this all the information to get that forgiveness loan in time, which was the deadline was March 3rd, yet we submitted everything like a week before that. So hoping that everything goes well, we'll keep trying to assist Long Island Village as much as we can. And right now, we're just hoping that our bond counsel comes in for the legal questions that he's going to answer. Any information on the finances? You want to? Okay, we have our financial advisors for Laguna Madre Water District, and here's a.
Thank you. Bobby Villarreal, for the record, with Estrada and also financial advisor to Laguna Madre. Just to go over the finances, and I think what Charles had mentioned before was the application for a loan and loan forgiveness. With Water Development Board, as you approach them, one of the things you need to be aware of is that when we approach them on your behalf to get the loan and potentially loan forgiveness, it's competitive. We don't know how they're going to qualify you. It's competitive throughout the state, so some rank higher than others. But again, we can't pursue this financing with Water Development Board unless the authority from this special district is voted upon. So if it doesn't, then we don't go any further, right? So having said that, we have a few scenarios here. I'm not sure if you can see it real well, but essentially there's two different loans, one called clean water, another one called drinking water. One's for the water, one is for the sewer. And so the rates that we ran were with 50 basis points interest rate in addition to the current market rates. Now, what y'all have all noticed at this time is interest rates are on the rise, but pursuing the most advantageous, most tax efficient is going through the Texas Water Development Board because they have subsidized interest rates. They're the best rates that you'll get. The state of Texas essentially does the borrowing and then passes that on to you if you're successful in the application. And so you get a better interest rate than you would otherwise with a conventional loan. So essentially, what this would require is two different loans and roughly about 3.5% interest on 12 million and 8 million. And so essentially, the total debt payment, you'll see it right here on the far right, it's roughly about $1 million a year, and that would require about 92 pennies in taxes per $100 valuation. So essentially, on a $100,000 home, that's roughly about, I can't see it myself, but I think it says about $920 annually. So that's about $77 a month for a $100,000 home. And that's in the scenario where LIV never grows in value, stays stagnant for the next 20 or 30 years. You kind of anticipate there's additional growth, more development goes in there. Charles, can you go to the next slide? So this one right here also does a scenario where there is some small growth that we incorporated of a minimal amount of about 3% a year for a few years. And again, yeah, there you go, that's a little better. So yeah, in this scenario, roughly on a $100,000 home is about $920 annually, about $77 a month in increase, approximately. And then this is what we submitted to Texas Water Development Board. Go to the next, the third one. Essentially, this is a 4%. We just wanted to put some cover in there just to make sure we're conservative. And essentially, this would be about $1,000 a year at about $85 a month per property that's worth $100,000. Now, Charles, if you go to the very last slide, it'll be a summary of all three scenarios. But essentially, if you see right there, I'm hoping everybody can see it, but we have the different tax impacts per value of property based on these assumptions. And the average property value in Long Island Village is about $125,000. That's the average. Some are above, some are below. Some are vacant, some are built out real nice. But essentially, if you're in that $125,000 average value, you're looking at between $815 a year to about $1,150 a year. And then of course, it just depends on the value of your property. But again, just one thing to summarize all this is, again, this is the most tax efficient, best rates that you can get. And again, this is competitive. There are no guarantees, but again, Laguna Madre cannot pursue or do anything on your behalf unless there's authority for them to do so. And that's contingent upon the selection. But I think that's about all I have. I'll go ahead and pass it on to Carlos.
I suppose that the financial part, the finance part, we could take some questions. Hopefully that if they're not legal, we can answer, but bond counsel will answer them when he gets here. Hopefully he's not lost. Sure. Perfect. Thank you, Fred. Good idea. We're just gonna take a break then, because I know my throat was drying up. Okay.
We'll take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
Hello? Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Noel Valdez, and I'm with the law firm of McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton. We serve as bond counsel to the Laguna Madre Water District. What does bond counsel mean? It means that when the Laguna Madre Water District wants to borrow money for its various purposes, whether those bonds or that money that they borrow is securitized by revenues of the district or ad valorem taxes, we serve as their counsel in making sure that they comply with state law in getting that debt issued and approved by the Texas Attorney General. I am also counsel who worked with general counsel to LIV in arriving at the project agreement that spelled out the plan or the process that we've put in place for calling a bond election in May, wherein the voters of LIV will have the opportunity to vote yes or no for the issuance of bonds for the construction of water and sewer system improvements within LIV to be paid by the taxpayers of LIV. I know you all are going to have questions for me, but I want to introduce you. I want to introduce myself to you for y'all to know exactly who I am.
Thank you very much. So, question A, anyone want to have an opportunity to ask a question? And we ask that you come to the front of the form a line if you need to.
Here? Yeah. My name is Jim Gallagher, Sea Cottage lot number 1116. The residency of LIV, or a resident of Texas, I'm a resident of Michigan, my legal residency. Am I voting on this May 7th election? You're having it at the city, it's not here. I'm a little confused on who's eligible to vote.
It will be the registered voters of LIV who are registered to vote here in Cameron County.
No. The answer is no.
It's like what your driver's license says. My driver's license says Jody Nelson, 313 Sundial Circle, Port Isabel, Texas. Means I can vote here. In the presidential election, in a bond election, and a school election.
And the decision as to where the polling place was going to be put was made a determination between the Laguna Madre District and the county.
Okay.
And the county will determine the precincts, but the county, and under state law, is the polling places within,
Okay. I understand.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know how it goes. I don't get to vote, but I get to live with the consequences. That sounds good. Can I ask one more question? May I?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask one more question. I didn't quite understand your numbers when you were saying $1,000 a month, $850, and then you tied it into our property tax bill. Is this going to be on our property tax, this additional money to repay the bond?
Hey, Jim, short answer, yes. What's going to happen is that when you pay your taxes, your property taxes, there's a portion of that that's your Laguna Madre portion. That's the tax that will increase. Where this vote is held, we could have had the choice of either held it here at LIV or at the City Hall. It would have cost, I think it was an extra 20 grand to hold it here. Where it was held was not the issue. It's who can vote. And what we were told from day one is that you need to be a registered voter in LIV to be able to vote in this. So it's like, where do you vote for the presidential election? Do you vote here or do you vote in Michigan?
Gotcha,
Same thing.
gotcha.
And let me just specify, because you do ask a great question with regard to these taxes and where they will be imposed. Under state law, the Laguna Madre District has the authority to designate any area within its borders as what's called a defined area under state law. Upon designating an area within its borders as a defined area, it can then give the opportunity to the voters of that area to determine for themselves whether they want to vote bonds for public improvements within their boundaries. Those public improvements, if approved, will be paid by an ad valorem tax, not an assessment from your condominium, an ad valorem tax that comes on your tax bill that only is imposed on the residents of LIV for the payment of those bonds for the infrastructure improvements within LIV.
And then it's prorated by valuation, I assume.
Exactly. So the tax is uniform. However, why some people pay more and some people pay less depends on the value of their home. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed McBride, and I have a couple of questions for you. First, I want to give you some background. In Long Island Village, our documents, when we formed our village, we decided that every owner should pay equally for services or repairs within our community. Our swing bridge, for instance, they say that each person's the value of their property, they have to pay a certain amount. We combine the value of our property and we make one payment for the swing bridge because that's the way our defining documents were set up. My question is, it would be simpler because it's a loan with an interest rate and a monthly payment. It would be simpler for you to send our office a bill and just pay it monthly and we all share equally in the amount. And we set that up when we started this project. We set that up to have that fund, and we have a couple $1 million in there already. We set up to have a fund so we could pay the loan off. We didn't anticipate this amount, but my question is, did anybody ask you if you could do it that way? Because our defining documents say that's the way we're supposed to do it.
And I think that's a very important question, and I think it's important that I differentiate one thing before we proceed any further. There are your condominium documents and your bylaws, and then there's the statutes under which the Laguna Madre District operates. And so the district is guided by state law. So as bond counsel, as counsel to the Laguna Madre District, I can definitely explain to you the authority that the district has under state law. The district was approached for assistance with financing public improvements within LIV. The real avenue of doing that for the district, when asked, is to designate a certain area under state law as a defined area, to hold a bond election with that area, and if approved, and indeed bonds are issued to construct those improvements, is to levy taxes in accordance with state law. So there is no other mechanism. Now your condominium and your bylaws might have different ways by which assessments can be made and improvements can be paid for, but under state law, the district has to comply with state law, and state law says that taxes will be levied according to assessed valuation.
Okay, but can you combine the assessed valuation and understand that we could still make a monthly payment right from our office at one time, or, every month make that payment from our office, rather than send each individual a bill and have to reassess every year or whatever you're going to do?
The answer is going to be no. if the district issues bonds and makes the improvements and then taxes are levied, no, there can't be a hybrid, because who more than likely will be the purchasers of your bonds, being the Texas Water Development Board, more than likely, they will want certain covenants in the bond documents that the Laguna Madre Water District makes, that it will, on an annual basis, levy a tax sufficient within LIV on each particular home to make annual principal and interest payments. And that's in accordance with state law, and the Texas Attorney General, who will approve the resolution that authorizes the issuance of debt to the Texas Water Development Board, will want to make sure that the covenants within the bond resolution comport to and are in accordance with state law. So that's the reason that the hybrid cannot be made.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Carter Young. I've owned property here for 32 years. I state a couple of comments. One, I'm supportive of the infrastructure development. As owners, we enhance our value, or at least stabilize our value in the property by approving the infrastructure improvements. Resident elector, which is referred to within the bond document that we received, I understand there are 412 resident electors within this special district. Those resident electors could be owners or they could be tenants, correct? So a tenant, someone that's a full-time resident here
That's
that rents
correct.
a property, basically will be allowed to vote in the election.
That's correct.
Arguably, they could have a disincentive to vote yes, since they may experience increased costs associated with a positive vote. That's just intuitive. Another question that no one's been able to answer for me. In the state of Texas, there's an over 65 property tax freeze. Now, where I live in Aransas Pass, that applies to city taxes and to school district taxes, but no other taxing entities are subject to that property tax freeze. Can you answer for me, does the over 65 exemption in Cameron County apply to the water district or not?
And that I would refer you to the appraisal district. I would refer you to the appraisal district. Each appraisal district will interpret the laws of the state of Texas a little bit differently. I could inquire and be very specific with my response, but as of right now, I would not venture to see.
So as I understand from the engineer, within this special district, the funds will be allocated to individual property owners by the appraisal district. You can appreciate that so you'll have a simple lump sum that comes out of this special taxing district to pay for your bonds. And those will be allocated by the appraisal district to each individual property owner based upon their value of their property. So you can understand that if LIV is subject to that lump sum agreement, that if the over 65 exemption applies, those 412 residents, if they're all owners, could see no cost associated with the improvements to those 412 owners. And the other 700 owners could end up paying the bill, if you will. That's the importance of having this question answered.
I might be into that.
Okay?
Just to jump in here real quick, we can get with Kathy Cunningham, our attorney, but with Kathy, the initial advice she gave us was that the minute this is a user-defined area, they have the right to impose that tax regardless of age. Now, we'll ask her again, but that's the initial answer.
Thank you.
Well, I'm John Neely from Lot 635. I was looking for some clarification on the chance that we would get forgiveness. It was called disadvantaged communities. We might get 30 or 40% off. I don't know. I didn't see anything that defines that type of community, and I think that our community might have a very difficult time doing that. Many homes in here are second homes. People live all over the country. We're hardly disadvantaged because we enjoy a wonderful place here. If there's any clarification for that. Otherwise, I think we should stop daydreaming that we're going to save 30 or 40%. Can anyone tell me what a disadvantaged community is and how we might be eligible for that?
Hi, yeah, Randy Winston. The way that, let me make sure I talk to the mic here well enough for everybody here. The disadvantaged community status is something the Water Development Board has within it, and we still don't know exactly what those rates are going to be. But let me explain it this way: the reason it's a disadvantaged community is because it's part of a block, a community block, and it has Port Isabel within it too. So the reason is it's not just subject to only LIV, but it's part of the community block of Port Isabel also. And so that's why that 30 and 50% rankings are shown by the Water Development Board on that. Does that make sense?
So in your opinion, there is hope that we might get some forgiveness on this large bond issue?
It's ranked there, and it's got the potential for it. It's up to the discretionary actions of the Water Development Board, but that's what the money's is, or that's what those classifications are there for. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
But like I said, it's part of a larger block. It's just not LIV, but it's based on the whole census block.
I'm John Nold, and I was on the board originally when we first started this project. I've sat in many hours of meetings with many of these folks that are sitting up here, and I'm disappointed that we went from a 0.8% loan to a 4% loan. I'm disappointed that the cost of this project escalated to the point that it is. And having said that, I'm going to talk about the fees. What I read in your email was there was approximately $1 million worth of fees associated with this. But what I didn't see was the SWG fees. And originally, that cost was going to be somewhere around $800,000. And the way I'm looking at this now, it's going to be between 4 and 5 million. So that the cost of doing what we're getting ready to do is somewhere around $6 million. Every single fee that I saw is associated by percentage. So there's no incentive to do this any cheaper. And there's a high probability that it won't be $21 million. It will be somewhere largely in excess of that. I've never seen a construction project come in under budget, especially when it's tied to percentages of all the pockets involved. So I just have one question to finish that up with. Why did you think it was not important to ask the membership if it was okay to let 400 people decide a $35 million project? Thank you.
Excuse me, it's not a $35 million project. It's 20.8. And this board here, did not sign that contract. It was a past board that did it at a percentage. We care because, all right, but y'all don't have to do this. You have a right to vote. We can't help it that you have to be a resident and LIV to vote. It's just like if you have a vacation home somewhere else. You don't vote there. These people have worked really hard to get us to this point and tried to find us forgiveness money. There's no guarantees on anything, but I can guarantee you this. Our water system is in dire shape. And every day we have water is a blessing because we're about to the end.
Good afternoon, Philip Parkinson, lot 643. Assuming this project goes forward, we will take the water that is now going through the village and it will really be going through the Laguna Madre district as far as distribution. So there will be, we're paying for it in our condo fees now, but we'll be paying directly to the district. Has the board started any work on the condo fee money that we may be able to save individually, since we'll no longer be paying you for water? When I say you, I'm referring to LIV, we'll be paying the district and employees and other things that we spend so much money now doing, maintaining our breakages, our plumbing, that are in the streets, our lift stations. Have you started any work on what we could possibly start to save per month on our condo fees to help offset these increased costs that are coming down the line when we switch our water to directly to Laguna Madre?
It's a great question. First off, what Laguna Madre is doing is showing the worst case scenario. What they've told us time and time again is they cannot even proceed to get grant reductions unless we vote yes. So if we vote yes and they get grant reductions, maybe it's not 20 million, maybe it's 13 or 14. Maybe the grant reductions never come through and it is in fact the 20 million. So let's go on that assumption that it is 20 million and address the question. If you have a $125,000 appraised house, it's not what you paid for it, it's not what you can sell it for, it's what your appraised value is. Your taxes on this would be about $1,000 a year. Wait a second, let me finish. Now then, once this infrastructure starts, 12% of your dues go into an infrastructure fund. Of that 12%, 3% is for major improvements, 9% stays with the infrastructure. There is no reason why a board in 2024, because this is not going to happen until October of 2024, it's a year and a half away, would not take that 9% and knock that out right away. So if you did that, you're $300 less a year. So your $1,000 a year taxes has now been cut down to $700. Specifically to your question, Fred can tell you that we spend a ton of money every year on water leaks, fixing our systems, tools, et cetera, et cetera. How much do we save on that to knock that down even more? Don't have an answer yet. Maybe it's another 50, maybe it's another 100. I have no idea. But in answer to your question, I would hope that the board in 2024, whoever's on it, takes that into account and says, let's knock some of these fees down so that $1,000 fee that person had. And remember, there's a lot of people here, their house is only valued at $60,000, $55,000. For them, this is going to be almost a wash, because when you take the increased taxes, you take the reduction in dues, it's almost a wash. So to answer your question, I would hope that a future board would do that, and that is a major option that's on the table.
Well, the comment was, I would hope you would be that future board and start doing this, and not wait till 2024, that you start planning now for when this system is now being run by Laguna Madre and not by LIV.
Yeah, I'm back at lot 205. We've got some condos and stuff. Well, when you're referring to the defined area for Long Island Village, spell that out.
When the Laguna Madre Water District Board designated LIV as a defined area, it was provided metes and bounds of the LIV village. So the particular area that has been designated is described by metes and bounds. So I would want to know the question, and perhaps Randy can answer whether that area is included or not.
In which area is that? The defined boundaries of the LIV is pretty much, if I start on the east side, would be the shop as you enter in, the Welcome Center, following along the intercoastal back to the Sea Scallop in the back in that area, wrapping around the outside edge, close to the waterways.
Well,
and then
I guess the question I have, we've got some condos back over here. And doesn't their water supply come through the village here some way?
Yes, sir. They tie in. You talk about the multi-story apartment units that are up.
Yeah, these units back
right
down
there.
the road.
Right. So, yeah. So that is not within this district. So they do not vote, and
But doesn't they benefit from whatever we do here relative to our water?
They ultimately could, another development ultimately could also, but what I've recommended also to the board and talking to Laguna Monitors, there may be some reimbursable items that we want to look at in the future. So if a development does come in somewhere else that they tap in, that they may.
Yeah, but see, we've already got a development out there. Are they sharing in some of these costs?
Not within this vote, no, sir.
Okay, the other thing is, you know, I know you come up with this figure of $1,000 per, and that's right at the bottom of this page here. But there's some other numbers here. For example, there was a 0.038201% that is on page 6 of this handout. And then from a slide from the annual meeting, there was a figure of $864 per thousand. So that tends to be very confusing, all three of those. So the bottom line that we're looking at then is, you're saying is going to be about $1,000 per $100 of assessed valuation, unless some grants and whatnot come through, as you were alluding to. Is that correct?
Yes, so approximately on about $100,000 home, we're looking at probably about $732 a year, roughly. And of course, the average home is about $125, so that's about $916 a year. Again, just to clarify, also the bond is up to the $20 million, but again, if there's grants and other things that they offer beforehand, the district would borrow.
But I also agree with the previous gentleman that very seldom do you see these things come in at what they've been projected, especially when it's a kind of a municipal or government project, whatever it might be. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm bidding jobs all over the state right now, even up in the hill country. Pipeline prices, PVC prices, all these things change daily on us. That's the hardest thing. Manhole pricing. So yes, some of those are hard things to pin down, and yes, there is contingency built within those numbers that you see. So there's actually, I'm trying to remember, about $1 million plus or so contingency within that these numbers that you all see too.
Huey Carter, 675. How long is this project going to take from beginning to end? What are you looking at?
I guess it'd be me. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
That's a great question. The construction activities usually probably take about a year or so to do. It needs to be phased accordingly. It needs to be new lines put in the street right of ways. And then once that's done, individuals be switched off of the old system and brought to the new system. But it's not like everybody's out of water or doesn't have sewer access. It needs to be all water put in, wastewater put in, inspected, approved, and then switch them over. So there is going to be some inconveniences that go down those particular streets and such, but you know they'll need to work it by zones. And then once that area gets again approved and ready to tie into, then they'll be switched over at that point. You know, one of the things I failed to mention too is so important is not only the water and the wastewater, but Fred can help me with this on the AEP side of this thing. Doug can also jump in here too. That coordination is going to be super important to get their upgrades out here too while this activity is going on.
What would be your start date?
Sorry,
what would be your start date?
So the start date would be after the funding of this, the funding cycle. We hope we'd see that the rankings and the beginning of this at the end towards the end of this year, August, and that time frame. The funding would actually come next year in 2023 if everything goes, according to plan.
Right.
And then final plans be completed and then Laguna Madre will set the dates on construction.
And would you be resurfacing the streets, or how are you gonna work that? You just dig them all up?
Street resurfacing would be within this package, yes, sir. So there is a budgetary number for that too. So when the contractor comes in, cuts the street for the water, the wastewater, and then if AEP follows and puts their pipelines in there too, and then it's gonna be totally repaved. So that's one of the major costs within the project is repaving.
So the increase, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, but the increase is gonna be in perpetuity? Is it gonna continue on? Or is there a time when it stops? 30 years? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, the bond would go away, but the repayment schedule still stays the same, is my understanding.
It's a level debt payment for 30 years. Of course, if the LIV itself grows itself, potentially your tax rate would drop as values go up.
Right.
So Huey, to answer some of your other questions, at one point in time, I sat in on the meetings where it was brought up we should do this ourselves, which I think would have been 100% disaster. That's my own opinion, but that's what I think would happen. With Laguna Madre doing this, we've asked them, how are our members affected when you guys start this? And they thought this out. What they told us at the board meeting was like when they do a street, they'll do a half a street at the time. They'll have two flagmen where one's up the front of the street, one's at the back of the street. So you can't have people just zipping down the street. They're going to be directed. In other words, it's going to be a logical, step-by-step construction. So it's not in our hands, it's in their hands. So for those people that are worried, how on earth do I get to my house? What's going on? They've thought about that, and that's the big difference between them doing it and us doing it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
My name is Rene Rosales. I'm Sea Cottage 1101, right across from Randy's. First of all, I want to thank all of you for being here and working on this project. It's very worthwhile. I agree with you. It'd be a total disaster for us to do something like this on our own. And we thank Laguna Madre for intervening on our behalf. I have three simple questions. One is, at one time we talked about individual metering, and you know, that's a great idea because we waste a lot of water as homeowners here. I mean, let's face it. I mean, right now we just, you know, wash our houses, we wash anything, we run the water, toilets run. You know, are we going to have individual metering systems, and are these some of the costs that are outside of the bond and so forth?
Sorry about that. So in the project scope and budget, there are the self-read water meters already in there. So it's already built within that cost, so it's in this budget, yes, sir.
And that's an individual basis?
That is correct. So
we're going to change our ways?
Yes, sir. So the big thing is when LIV, you know, we've had some leaks that were approaching 50,000 or so in a month, but it's going to be controlled by the individual meters, and that will make it tremendous because Laguna Madre will maintain the main lines and be responsible if there was any leaks in that area. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. To further answer your question, if you have the meters on the houses, the sprinkling of the grass is still done by LIV. So you're talking about strictly just what you use inside your own home, shower, sewer, everything else, the grass still is done by LIV.
Yeah, that's good clarification, thank you. Regarding Laguna Madre and their obligations to us once you're committed to us and supporting us, where does it end, the Laguna Madre responsibilities of getting sewer, water here and sewer away? Or does it now become everything? You know, Long Island Village now is Laguna Madre is providing all the services to ensure that we get, you know, water here and sewer away. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, as the water and sewer are moved to the street will become a dedicated public utility easement. So at that water meter, that will be the transition from where it's the Laguna Madre Water District in the street area, and once you pass the water meter, it'll be a private service to fix. And for the sewer, it'd be a similar setup at the cleanout.
Okay, and what's to make sure you guys deliver and take away what you're supposed to be taking and delivering or taking away? What's our what's our recourse? What do you do?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure Laguna Madre's going to show up and do what they're saying they're going to do, getting the water here and sewer away.
The answer is that once the infrastructure gets built and dedicated to Laguna Madre, the infrastructure will become part of the operating system of Laguna Madre, just like any other infrastructure throughout the cities.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
That's what I was looking for. The other comment, a gentleman earlier mentioned, the marina over here kind of piggybacks on a lot of our payments and costs. We do, if I recall correctly, we had an obligation to provide the people that sued us some sewer and other things like that. What we're doing now, will that take care of some of those issues, or is that built in, or how does that work? Not only them, and the marina too, will they become part of the outlying district that pays, how does that work? Or have we thought about this?
Thank you, Renee. Yes, so they're currently not part of the voting district. They are tagged, like you say, onto the system that's here. But if you'd imagine, of course, when it's built and constructed, and it's Laguna Madre will take it and have it. What I was recommending was a reimbursable contract, so not only them, but anybody else in the future. So if any other development occurs and they tie into it, they would pay a proportionate share of that cost at that time. So it's going to protect for the future is what I would recommend, the way I'd recommend it, because that's just one of the things that could happen too.
That's add-ons. Now, currently, my understanding was that we were under an obligation to provide sewage as part of the settlement, the legal settlement, we were to provide sewage to that property over there, right behind us. Are we resolved from that obligation, or is Laguna Madre taking it over, or what's the situation?
I'll answer that by saying that is an issue that I have not spoken to your general counsel, but it's a great question, and I will speak to your general counsel and to the extent that can be addressed by way of this financing. That's a great question. We will.
Part of this. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, Ken Waller. As you know, Laguna Madre guys, and I'm really appreciative that you guys are still working on this. And as you know, I've been working on this for many years. The thing is our costs seem to have gone way overboard on this thing. And Randy, I guess this would be a question for you. 3 years ago, our cost was about $16 million, and that's where you're at right now, right?
In the cost figures that you see, it's a total of about 21. But
no, I know, but that's the other things of the cost of the loan and the cost of everything else. But your cost back about 3 years ago was about $16 million, and at that time, that $16 million included a lot of the sewer system and all of the water system. But we had talked to Laguna Madre, and a lot of our sewer systems are already in the street. So are we not going to use that anymore? From what I've understood, that you're not going to take it over anymore unless everything is changed. And our cost estimates at that time did not include the sea cottages. It did not include the lift stations. It did not include the water meters. It did not include the hookup of the secondary lines to the homes. Am I wrong? Or, it seems to me, our cost estimates, and I asked for this cost estimate a couple, 3 weeks ago, and I was told to sit down. But it doesn't seem that those cost estimates have changed. I hear all this stuff about, oh, COVID has caused the price to go up so much, but it doesn't seem like our cost estimate has changed any. Maybe you can enlighten me on that.
More than happy to. So when the Water Development Board opportunity came around for, to reapply for that application, we went ahead and brought the numbers up to more of a current cost escalation because of well, everything's going up in price. And so
But that number hasn't changed from 3 years ago.
some of the, yeah, there's been a lot of things that have floated around and moved around, but so I've got, it's right, in the 21 million, it's right, you need to look in that, right, how to break it down. So is it, what's the engineering cost, what's the bond council cost, and I believe there's also a cost of a certain portion of payment down, if I say it that way. But the cost estimates, Ken, I'd have to go back and take an exact look and see what they were, but the numbers we're looking at right now are, like I said, a total package with the yard lines, the meters, everything within there too.
That sounds like a heck of a deal now then. But what Laguna Madre, you people are telling, okay, what are you gonna charge per owner to hook up that, to put a meter in? Right now, when I get a meter in South Padre Island, I get one in Port Isabel, for houses that we're working on, it costs me $2,200. Is that gonna be negotiated down? I mean, or is that $2,200, is there another $2 million worth of water meters put in that number? And I do know also, there was at one time when we checked and we tried to get some estimates for the secondary lines, it was $3,600 per unit. That's $3,000, I mean, that's $3,700,000, más o menos. I see, and I'm going, those numbers were not in the original estimates. And now we're up to this. So it seems to me like we're already way over budget. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I say, nobody is, you know, I think as the people of Long Island Village should be able to see what these cost estimates are. And I have cost estimates from 3 years ago, and they were about $6 million. And we brought that down to $8 million, $8,600,000, if I remember right in my head. And that was because Laguna Madre at that time had said that, okay, some of these streets that have the sewers in them, we can scope them and they will take them over. Am I wrong or am I right? I mean, from the Laguna Madre people.
I mean, the system will have to be assessed, and I mean, being that those lines were not inspected at the time of construction for acceptance by the water district, we're really starting from square one. As it's dug up to inspect it, I mean, chances are it'll get replaced. There may be point repairs, but for the most part, we'd have to, at this point, it's estimated as a new system before we take it as part of our system for wastewater. I mean, if that's a fair statement.
But that adds up to quite a bit of money. And I don't understand, you know, you don't have to dig it up to see the sewer line. You can put a scope down there and see if it's okay. The sewer lines that are in our streets, there has been no problems with them as far as I know. We have, and then when we get into the lift stations, I'm sorry, but I was involved in this for many years. We never talked about lift stations except for with Laguna Madre. And Laguna Madre at that time, we talked several times about just taking over our lift stations for us. We pay a lot of money every month for our sewer water, you know, when it comes down to our bill. And we're the ones who are paying for all of these lift stations right now. And the whole thing was that Laguna Madre was probably just going to take them over. But there's never been a dollar amount for the lift stations. Am I wrong about this, Randy?
Within this budget, we have Yes. Within this budget, we have monies set aside for the repairs and rehab of each one of the lift stations.
There was not 3 years ago.
That's correct. Yes, correct.
So now the price has that basically gone down. Is that what you're trying to tell me? The price has not gone up. Because all of those things were not in there. The water meters were not in there. And none of Laguna Madre, do you want to tell me how much it's going to cost us to put a water meter in? Do you have that number?
I've got it within the budget. I don't have, there's no cost associated with that connection at the moment. We have not discussed that further if Laguna Madre will waive that tap fee, but we've got, about $1,500, $1,800, if I recall, for each meter, each water meter for the installation and for the cost of that meter itself and the install.
But that was not there 3 years ago. And the number hasn't gone up. So this is what I'm asking about. And that's why I wanted to see what our cost estimates are for now. And it also did not include the sea cottages, because the sea cottages, their water line and their sewer line is already in that street. So it seems to me we're putting the cart before the horse, and with all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these numbers are coming out of here. And I don't know, can you tell me? I mean, can anybody tell me where these numbers are coming from? Because nobody seems to know what the cost estimates actually are. Am I wrong?
I've got them available. We've got them. I can provide them and let Fred have them up at the front. They're totaled.
That's what I asked for a couple of weeks ago.
They're by street also, so you can look at it by street cost or by total, by different disciplines, water, wastewater, street values too. Yes, sir.
And I also know nothing has been changed. There was way too many fire hydrants, way too many manhole covers. I mean, nothing has ever been put, manholes, I should say, not manhole covers. There's several streets where you had 4 of them to make a corner. And at that time, you told me it was, we didn't need that many and we could bring that down. But it seems to me, like I say, I keep hearing that this price has gone up because of COVID and all the costs have gone up. But the number seems to be the same number that it was 3 years ago. Because, we're not taking out the sewer lines that are already there, that work perfectly fine. And like I say, it seems to me we don't have the right numbers here. Maybe I'm wrong, because I know it did not include the secondary hookups. It did not include the water meters. It did not include the lift stations. It did not include the sea cottages. And it did include new sewer lines everywhere at that time. So.
Okay, Mr. Waller, just a minute. This is a turnkey operation. We have been informed if they don't do everything, they're not going to warranty the work. That would be like having one builder build your house and another builder say, I'll take the warranty on. They have to do it all. The lift station just went down yesterday on my corner, or today. They were working on it. They go down. It'll be Laguna Madre's problem now. And they have the money to maintain them better than I'm sure we do.
Well, I know, I understand.
In fairness for a lift station.
I'm really appreciative of Laguna Madre and you guys. We've been working on this for many years. But it seems to me none of these numbers are in there. And for a lift station going down, it doesn't take that much to pull a pump up and put a new pump down. It's a 2-hour job. That's not a big deal. And I don't know what what the rehab of the lift stations are, or it's new lift stations. Nobody has said anything about this. This seems to be, and like I say, so Laguna Madre will not take over any of the old sewer lines. I'm talking to Laguna Madre right now, to Charles and that.
We need a construction inspection before we can accept a line.
Well, okay. So there's a possibility you could scope them and we don't have to pay for that. But now when we take a $21 million bond, do we back that off?
Yes.
No, I'm talking to the people here. I mean, I don't know. It seems to me we've got a 30-year loan on this, and if let's say it cost us $35 million instead of $20 million now. Is our taxes going to go up more because of that?
We cannot exceed the authority being requested at the May 7th election.
Okay,
that
so
doesn't-
at $20 million and it ends up being $35 million or $30 million, it'll just stop or they'll ask for a new bond.
Yeah, to get an increase above the requested amount would have to come through some other means, whether it be a second election or another avenue, but we won't have that authority because our authority is limited to the 20.8 million.
So we get 3/4 of it done, and if we run out of money, we stop. Is that basically what we're saying? Or when we come down to, I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, we get it as far as we can get it with our available funds. That's really where we want to go. We know our priorities are the meters and the water system, the sewer system. If there's portions that can't be accepted because of cost limits, well, that remains private, but the sewer service will still be there at the end of the day. So that's how we have to approach the project.
Okay. So in other words, we really don't know what our total costs are yet.
Well, we have an amount not to exceed.
I just want to make a point, right, Ken? I mean, so much of these numbers are not final until you go out for bids, and it's an estimate. So a lot of these are, and they are, they're estimates based upon the best knowledge at that time. But you know, when you go out for bids, if it comes in under also, or you know, depending on the funding, these numbers can change and drop also. I've been through many water development board projects where it comes under, and then that amount is reduced to that under amount. It's right at the moment there are a lot of moving targets because we just fully do not know sometimes, and then with the price and escalation of pipe, it changes. But you've got to move forward. There's an escalation. There are contingencies built within the project to try to outmaneuver some of those cost overruns that could happen too.
So anyways, you can provide us with the cost estimates up at the front office, where we can look at it and it'll show the secondary line pickups, the lift stations, the water meters, all of this stuff will be in there? I would appreciate, like I said,
well, if I can answer that, there's an engineer's report that was used to support this bond election, and those details are in the engineer's report, and that should be available for.
Well, I know, but that engineering report doesn't really say those things. Like I say, I've been involved with this for many years, and it seems to me we do not have those numbers in there. And like I say, I know it needs to be done. I'm not saying it doesn't, and I do appreciate Laguna Madre going this and trying to help us with the money. But to tell you the truth, we could do it for a lot cheaper through our own special assessments. I'm just saying, our special assessments could do it. We could get a bank to do it, and we have an engineer to do it. That's not a problem.
Guys, wait, hang on here. This is the first town hall meeting. We can all agree to disagree. Ken brings up some excellent questions, which are some things we can look at, but this is meeting number 1. The vote is not till May. What we're trying to do is get the temperature of everybody, get the questions. Some of the questions Ken's asked are very valid questions, and maybe Randy can provide to Fred some of those answers, and we can look at that. So again, we can agree to disagree, but this is the first town hall. We're all trying to do the right thing. The board, when you read our bylaws, you read our declarations, the number one priority of this board, the number one priority is the safety of our residents. Nothing is safer than your drinking water. That's our number one priority, trying to get that fixed. How we get there, this is yet one avenue that we're trying to approach. So when these people, whenever it comes up with a question, you can agree, you can disagree, but let's take the questions, let's do it civil. Kim brought up some great points. We'll research that. We'll have another town hall meeting, and hopefully we'll get to the answers on this. But what we're trying to do is get to a solution. Because up until now, it's just been talk. This is the first time where we actually have a bona fide solution. Whether it passes or not, that's up to you guys, but at least we're to that point. So Ken, I appreciate your points.
Okay. Well, like I say, it just seems that we've gone forward with this and we don't have any answers. Is that correct? We don't really have the answers for any of my questions.
Okay, I do have a couple of answers for you.
Okay.
I know that our board had decided to take all the infrastructure that's gonna be in place as new. The reason being that, because you mentioned about the sewer lines and lift stations, if we do not repair everything as new, we say like a couple years or so after we're done, you have a sewer leak that's broken right in the middle of the street, we're gonna have to come back and tear the street up again.
Right.
So just keep in mind that this infrastructure that's here is over 50 years old. I'm about that age. I don't think you wanna marry me, do you? Because I'm old already. Well, anyhow, we will not take the over unless everything's new, because we don't wanna come back and tear the streets and then it's gonna cost us again to repair your street, and it will not be as perfect as it is when they finish.
Well, like I say,
One more thing that I wanna answer is that the water district is not taking any funds of any kind here. We were looking into something, but not yet, that just for taking over the meters, because one thing that we haven't talked about is charging for the meters, because you guys are gonna install everything. You know, once you all do all that with the projects, we don't have to go in there and charge, because we're gonna go read the meter or any type of that charges. It doesn't make sense for us to charge you something that you've already worked on.
Okay.
You know, so.
like I say,
Mr. Waller, I'm sorry, but there's people behind you and I gotta move on.
well, I know there's a lot of people behind me, that's fine.
Mr. Waller,
So are we
we're done.
Can we get the cost estimates?
Yes, we've said yes.
Okay, thank you.
John Nolan. Ms. Nelson, you corrected me a while ago on the amount of this project, 21 million.
Mr. Knoll, you said it could be 35
I
million.
did,
That's
yes,
not
ma'am.
what we're
Yes,
voting
ma'am,
on.
that is what I said. So you
You
said,
also were one on the board that signed the contract.
would you let me finish? Please. Thank you. So your answer to that was 21 million. Does that include all the fees? That includes SWG and all the interest rates and all the fees.
Yes, it's a turnkey operation.
Thank you. My other question, please, is if this passes, so that the bond is authorized, when it comes time to do the project, who gets to decide whether we're going to go forward? Is that the BOD or is that the membership?
It's fine. Should the election that has been duly called for may pass and the eligible voters of LIV approve the bond measure, then the Board of Directors of the Laguna Madre Water District will have the discretion and the authority to issue the bonds to construction improvements and levy the tax.
So after this coming vote, that's a green light to do the whole project. There's no other,
According to state law, upon the approval of the bond election by the eligible voters of LIV, it will be the Laguna Madre Water District, governed by the Board of Directors of the Laguna Madre Water District, that will decide whether to issue bonds or not to issue bonds. It will fall within the discretion of the current board or a future board, yes, sir.
and so if we get everything all done and we get to resurfacing the streets and we've spent our $21 million, where does the extra money come from to finish the job?
I can give you the legal answer. Yeah, I can give you the legal answer in that The only authority that the Laguna Madre District receives from the May election is to issue the amount being voted. Now, to the extent that there would be cost overruns, I would only say, being the attorney, and I don't deal with the financial aspect of working with the Texas Water Development Board, but I will say that working with the Texas Water Development Board, I know that they're going to be very interested to know what the scope of the project is and that the amount available at the time of issuance of the bonds will be sufficient to accomplish the purpose of the bond. So obviously that's putting reliance on the Texas Water Development Board, but to answer your question, should additional funds be needed to issue the bonds, then the legal avenues that Laguna Madre Water District has is to call another bond election, to call a district-wide bond election, or to somehow utilize some other type of revenue bond financing, but all to be within the discretion of the Board of Directors of the Laguna Madre Water District.
Let me ask you a question to piggyback what John's asking. When you guys put this out for bid, you would hope that whoever bids it fulfills what they say they're going to do. Is there some kind of bond performance or something you guys have that prevents the scenario John is talking about?
Yes, and Randy would be more familiar with that.
Yes, there will be a payment performance bond mandatory within there, and of course, Laguna Madre, the inspection oversight, by not only local oversight, but through Texas Water Development Board for it. So the project will come to completion, and if it doesn't, I mean, you go after his bond as a contractor and make it perform.
As John was saying, I think the question John's asking, and what we were told in the past, that if the bond goes through, that us as a board or us as LIV will be able to look at the numbers that came in from Randy, from the Laguna Madre Water District, look at them and say, yeah, it's within our scope, yeah, it's not within our scope, and we can still say no to you guys if we don't want to take the deal. I think that's the question John was asking. Is that a true statement, or as you said, sir, that it's a done deal once the vote goes through? That's not the way we were explained to by some of the board members. Is that a true statement or not?
Let me answer this, because that came up. We went to our attorney to specifically answer that question and wanted it in writing, because you're right, we've heard different things on this. The answer to that question is no, there is not an out clause. We thought there was, there is not. So when this bond passes, they have the right to get started and get on this project. Now, what has been brought up, if we pass it and it comes down to where it's not 13, 14, 15, 16 million, it's 20 or 22 million, what we could do, and this is on Oscar's recommendation, is go to their board of directors and petition saying, you know, guys, at 20 million, we don't think we can really pay for this. But that is the issue, and I got to commend them. They're telling us that the worst case scenario is the 20 million. If you have a $100,000 house, your tax is going to be about 700. If it's 125, it's going to be 1,000. So you're right, Bob. Going forward, if it passes, they have the green light to get going, and there is not an out clause at that time.
If I could mention.
Unfortunately, that's not what we told everybody that's sitting out here when I sat in the meetings and everything like that. What was told to everybody that once this was voted upon, if we didn't like the numbers and the things that Randy from SWG brought to us, and which they can go up in past experiences in doing this type of work, there's going to be cost overrides, as you said, sir. There will be a lot of cost overrides. We got a lot of spaghetti out there. As Fred said, there's going to be a ton of cost overrides. So in tagging on to some of the things that Ken was saying, we kind of know that the $20.8 million, there's a chance that it's going to go over. So it's not worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, if it goes over and the costs continue to increase year after year. Originally, we had spoken with Randy, and again, sir, correct me if I'm incorrect, we said it was going to take anywhere from 3 to 4 years to get through the whole project. Now I'm hearing a year. That's, in my opinion, wishful thinking. I could be incorrect, Mr. Randy. You've done way bigger projects than I've ever done, but we know for a fact that We've got a lot of obstacles here in LIV because we don't know where anything is. We're gonna tear into the ground, and as we've said in the past, as Fred knows and our crew knows, that anytime they dig into the ground, we risk tearing into something new, tearing into something different, and those are where the cost overrides come in. There's I appreciate Laguna Madre, I appreciate Randy, I appreciate the work everybody has done. I just think that there's a lot of questions that are left unanswered. I know this is our first meeting, Doug, but a lot of these answers should have been answered before we reached into a contract that took a week and a half to say yes or no on. I know you guys were limited with time and stuff, and we've worked with you guys for years, and I've been involved in a lot of those meetings also. But it took me back, and it took some of us board members back when we had to make a decision on something that we don't know all the facts on in 2 weeks. I know you guys are under restraints from higher ups. You got a government to respond to also, and I understand the way all those things work. What Doug just told me right now is extremely disturbing because we still had a choice after this, and we don't.
Well, just again, as these questions come up, that's why we're trying to do this, because we have to ask our attorney, we have to ask these fellows. The worst case scenario, just so everybody understands this, I'm going to tell you what our attorney said. The worst case scenario is that your water system fails, people start getting sick. The state of Texas comes in and mandates that these guys fix this thing, and we're charged $25 million with zero debt reduction, with whatever interest rate they want to do. It's mandated. At least right now, they're trying to help us. They're trying to get debt reduction. They're trying to take over the project. The worst case scenario is exactly that it fails, and we're mandated to do this by the state of Texas. That's the worst case scenario. There's no thing that's worse than that. So let's know that going in. These guys in the end might have to do this regardless, but at least right now they're coming in, they're willing to take over the project, they're willing to get grant funding. Yes, right now we don't know what the grant funding is. We don't know if it's going to be less. We don't know, but we do know what the worst case scenario could be.
Okay, Joe Scipione, Sea Cottage, 1058. I think I can remember my question, I'm not sure. Well, and thank everybody for all of the opportunity you've given us to hear all the different pluses and minuses here. Two things. Sometimes I like to look at things like you're flying in an airplane. You know, we're basically here voting to give authorization to pay these guys here, I'm going to call you guys these guys, Laguna Madre, $21 million roughly, to take over our water and sewer system, right? And then we go on a metering basis from then on. Is that correct? We would pay individual bills, right? That's what we're looking at, right? Now, so, and then we'll be assessed on a tax basis rather than an individual lot basis. And you're going to, instead of each lot paying the same thing, you're going to be paying a lot more if you happen to have a two-bedroom house that's worth more money, and a lot less if you have a two-bedroom mobile home that's value is a lot less, right? Okay, and I just want to trying to put these things together, all right? Just so somehow this, and that's because of the bonding, the funding mechanism, correct? I mean, the costs for the project are going to be the cost for the project. Right? You know, whether it's this much or that much includes this or includes that. I mean, those are all going to work out. It's going to be what it's going to be, what we have to do to get the infrastructure up to the standard that it needs to be so that we're in compliance with state and federal laws, right? So that's all going to that's going to come out in a wash, and there's going to be some number there. And their best guess is this $20,800,000. My question is, and I think, Doug, maybe you were heading that way, is, you know, I've heard the negative things. Well, geez, because there's a lot of voters, a lot of owners here that really don't get a vote. There's probably some renters here that do get a vote, possibly. I don't think that's huge, but there could be. The assessment by a tax thing is kind of like little hard pill to swallow rather than everybody pay equal for
Okay, Skip, let me
each
stop
lot.
you. Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
When this started, and we've talked about this at the coffees and the meetings ad nauseum, there is no way to get a loan based on assessments, because there's no way for whoever's making that loan to have proper collateral. The only way a loan can happen is through a tax system. So I would love to just do the assessment. It's impossible.
Okay, so that was one of my questions, is that it appears like we've gone from talk in the previous years of somehow getting a loan and every lot owner would pay for that. We've had to throw that out the door basically because you can't get it, right?
If it was done by LIV on our own, and you found a bank that was willing to loan $8 or $9 million, the first question the bank's going to ask is, what is my collateral? And I'll ask you that. What would LIV's collateral be? You can't put a lien on the golf course or the swimming pool. What they would put a lien on is your monthly dues, which means that bank would, in essence, run this park. So that got thrown out the window because there's no bank that's willing to do that. And our attorney point blank told us that when we had that conference call meeting. So it then became, this issue was dead like 6 months ago because it was just dead in the water. We were, let's punt and start over. They came up with the idea the way we can do this is through a tax. And you are correct. If your house is valued more, you're right. If you got a $300,000 appraised value double C cottage, you're going to pay more than the guy that's got a $50,000 park model. But right now, that's the only way to approve this, get it done. Not only get it done, but then have these guys take over to where you don't have water leaks, you don't have 5 guys fixing water every single day, and you can take that cost to the other gentleman that had the question and knock those dues down. What does that cost right now? Ford doesn't know. We haven't gotten that far. We sometimes, Fred, what would you say, our monthly water leaks sometimes are $50,000, $60,000? I mean, it's outrageous.
So basically, if we're going to get some kind of financing, it's going to be through a bonding thing, right? I mean, that's kind of, there's no, so the really question is, okay, if and don't get me wrong here, like I'm saying that we shouldn't do it or anything like that. I'm just saying, if it doesn't pass, due to whatever reason, what's our alternative? What do we got? I mean, I mean, because you got to look at, okay, you know, what we got to do, we got to do. Okay, so if we don't, then we're what?
I've been talking to other lending agencies out there, and there is a way for us to get another loan. As good as what they're offering us, maybe not, but there is other ways, and I did my due diligence and looked into that because there's a chance that it may not pass. And us as a board have to work on things. Maybe I don't agree with a lot that some of the other people on the board do, but I'm trying to do my due diligence and work and figure out what will happen if exactly what you said it doesn't. And I'm trying to move forward on that and trying to work a way that if for some reason or another this doesn't go through, that we can continue to do what we need to do, because it's definite that we need to do something about our situation.
So how close are we to being shut down by some government or water district? Would you guys shut us down?
Fortunately, that they know that we're working on this. We're not sitting on our hands. We're putting money away. We're trying to do something that benefits everybody, and hopefully we don't get shut down. I'm no expert in any of that, but from what I understand, since we're trying to get this worked on, and we are, I mean.
Well, it can take you so far sometimes, but eventually you get to a point where.
Well, let's address your question.
Doesn't help you anymore.
Your question is, what do we do if this doesn't pass? I'm not an engineer. As I've told you a gazillion times, I barely know which end of the screwdriver to hold. You've got a gentleman here, Fred, that is a general manager. When he ran it, and he was in charge of their infrastructure, but it's been to San Antonio. That's one of the premier home developments. Fred was in charge of doing that. Let's ask Fred, what happens if this fails? What do we do?
That's a good question. What you don't do is show up at my office trying to have me fix 400 homes worth of sewer. No, I'm kidding. So essentially, it's in dire need of repairs. So unfortunately, LIV doesn't have the manpower or resources, so we continue to put out fires daily. And we rely on professional individuals like the Laguna Madre Water District and other plumbing entities to come in and help us tackle those issues. What we would like to see, and proactively the board and everyone here at this table has been working diligently to try to see if we can do this in a positive manner where less homes, less folks get affected on a daily basis in a way where we have a long-term solution as opposed to being reactive. So again, the hope would be to do this, but there is a strong reality that it could not. Again, you just continue fighting fires on a daily basis and hope for the best.
Okay, but I think it's just basically a good idea, like, our electric, LIV doesn't run the electric part of this thing. My guess is water and sewer, we should not be running the water and sewer, because we don't know anything, I shouldn't say we don't know anything about it, but that's not a cup of tea here. We're a resort area, right? Okay, homeowner place. So I think to have a public agency, provider that provides water and sewer for everybody else here, right, probably makes sense. So it's just a matter, we got to work out the details on exactly how much and when and how we're going to pay somebody $21 million or whatever it is to be able to take it over.
It absolutely makes sense, and I'd like to make a clarification. LIV, by no way, shape, or form, are not going to try and do any of this project without the Laguna Madre and without SWG. We're already in a contract with them. We will not go out there and try and do these things ourselves. We're trying to get the funding on this. We're trying to figure out how we're going to get the funding on it. Us being on the board, we got to try and find the best cost-effective way of doing this. We will not do any of this on our own. It's going to be through the Laguna Madre Water District, and it's going to be through Randy Winston with SWG. We've got a contract with them already. We're just trying to find the funding and the best way we can get this moving at the best cost.
If I could just repeat one thing I heard, there were some great points in the last conversation. I believe it was Skip. Some of the things I need to just point out real quickly. Laguna Madre is the water supplier and your wastewater treatment. They handle all those items for you. So not only the collection of it is occurring right now with LIV, but they are going to be the ones that handle all of it. And so I just want to make a really good point that they are handling that now. Second point I want to recommend or note with Laguna Madre is mentioning of the partnership. Here we are, we've got Laguna Madre is a great partner. Well, it's like your kids want to borrow some money, want to buy a new car. You co-sign on the car, their interest rate goes way down. Our interest rate has gone down tremendously because based upon their good financing, their good credit. And that's one thing I want to point out too, is that's a major component within here because that's tied together with this project, not only Water Development Board interest rate, but we couldn't be doing that without Laguna Madre's credit too and partnership with that. So they tie hand in hand so well. Like Bob was saying, we've got to work it all together. It's so important. So I just wanted to point that out.
Can I also say something? I'd be remiss not to say this, is that I was asked earlier, should the bond election pass, does LIV still have a say on whether or not the bonds get passed or not passed? And is there a stopping point? And as a lawyer, I have to give you the legal answer, and the legal answer is that when the voters of LIV vote, if indeed they do vote yes, and the authority rests with the board of directors of the Laguna Madre Water District to issue the bonds or not issue the bonds. But I will say this, and that will be at the discretion of the board of directors or future board of directors. But I would also be remiss not to say that every meeting that I've attended with the board of directors or the staff of the Laguna Madre Water District, the emphasis is always the same. It's we want to keep our biggest customer happy, and we're going to do whatever it takes from our legal standpoint to offer up options. Now, whether the option's taken or not, that's up to you all and your board. But I just want to say that even though the option to issue remains with the board, that's at their discretion, and their discretion up to this point obviously has been as a partner and wanting to help LIV, their biggest customer.
Just to make sure. Patricia Burke, lot 768. I'm a little more pragmatic today. I'm getting too old to get into theory anymore. Let's assume, I can't get any higher because I can't stand it. Well, I tried that. It didn't want to come down, and there we go. Every time I tried to do that, I knocked the damn thing out of the hole. Okay. Let's assume this project passes. You get the bonds issued. You come to lot 768 where I live. You dig up the half the street, you take the lines, you put them in the road, that's good. Is that going to cost me out of pocket any money? Other than the taxes and my normal condo fees?
Currently, the way it is set up, no ma'am. We have a mechanism that we still need to discuss once this passes. And the mechanism I mean by that is now each individual owner will have to go and get that meter registered with Laguna Madre. But no, ma'am, it's like you've been hearing, it's a turnkey process on the water, the wastewater, and the paving portion with it.
That answers a lot of questions that were getting somewhat obfuscated by previous conversations. Secondly, to discuss the issue of our neighbors across Canal H, that's the Cowan property. According, as I recall, the agreement that Long Island Village entered into with Cowan, if they wish to attach to the sewer system and develop their project, they have to pay all costs associated with doing that and any upgrades to Long Island Village. I'm assuming that once Long Island Village turns the system over to Laguna Madre, that's going to be an issue between Cowan and Laguna Madre, and Long Island Village won't care. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, there was a third question, but I may have forgotten it by now because I'm getting old. Well, I'll forget about it because it probably wasn't that interesting anyway. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barb English from 192. I just have a couple of questions. One, this document, better? Okay, Barb English, lot 192. The document, the election document that was sent to all of us, there's a discrepancy. In one place it says this bond is for 30 years, which is what we've been hearing from our board of directors. In another place it says 35. Which is the correct number?
You got them looking, so that's a great question.
So page 5 and the last page. Page 5, it's on F. And it says not to exceed 35 years. The very last page, it says 30. Okay, how about this? Will the issue be resolved?
The issue will be resolved because I'm going to text my partner right now, who's in my office, and we'll get the final number for you.
More money if we're paying it 35 years than if we're paying it.
Yes, ma'am. Understood. I will get that answer for you right now.
Okay, I have another question. I'm new here, obviously, but I'm a registered voter, so I will be one of the residents that is going to have this decision for all of the people that don't live here, and that is not a very comfortable position for us to be in. And I know that no one that's not a registered voter here but owns is not happy with that decision. Have you in any way looked into the possibility of, can we have a private election here and that decision goes to the county and they use that decision so that all residents here and all property owners can vote on this decision?
No, ma'am.
Have you looked into it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way it is. And this has been floated through the Texas Attorney General. The only way, and I'll repeat this for probably the 500th time, the only way this can happen is through a tax. The only way a tax can happen is if it's with registered voters. So I understand your question. This is not an assessment, it's a tax. But to do it the way we're doing it with these folks, this is the only way it can get done.
So when we go to vote, how do they make sure that the people voting are only LIV residents?
Oh, yeah. We've created the defined area through the county election by meets and bounds that was provided in the resolution. So they'll have the part of District 59 within the defined area, and those will only be the eligible voters at the election day.
Thank you.
And just to throw something else out there real quick, we keep talking about cost. When this thing started 7, 8 years ago, we developed the prior boards, the infrastructure fund. Right now, there's currently $1.7 million in the infrastructure fund. This project would not start till October, or at least the funding October of 2024. January of 2024. By that time, your infrastructure fund should be well over $2 million. That infrastructure fund is not being tapped for this project because it's a tax. The infrastructure fund was started because we thought it would be a loan. Now it's a tax. So when we talk about costs and allocation of costs, there is a $2 million, I don't want to say slush fund, but there is a $2 million fund sitting in LIV that allows us to come up with some of these questions that might happen down the road.
The lady behind me has generously agreed to yield the floor to me for my last point. I did ask, and she agreed to do so if I'd make it quick. For those who aren't familiar with the workings and the politics of the village, I apologize, this may not be understandable to you, but hell has frozen over because I do agree with Bob Champion. There is no way in hell we can do this project on our own. Thank you.
Hi, Bridget Haggerty, Lot 643. I'm going back to the subject of the loan forgiveness, and I'd like to know, because obviously 30% and 50% respectively would have an enormous impact on people's ability to pay the increase in taxes. So is SWG actively lobbying the Water Development Board or WEEG to get these passed? Do you have a lobbying arm? Do you have a lobbying firm that you work with? Or did you simply submit the paperwork and it just goes or not?
Great question. As an engineering firm, we really don't have lobbyists, but we are actively participating and trying to get the best. Some of these numbers have actually increased. The first time we ran it was 30%. We're up to 30 and 50%, which are great. But those are great questions. We can sit down and work with Laguna Madre. Laguna Madre is actually the applicant for the project for LIV. So it's really going to be under Laguna Madre's name, and we can sit down and discuss that in terms of that. But we do actively discuss this quite often. But Charles, is there?
Yes, as far as schedule, since we're on an annual fiscal year cycle, the draft intended use plan is typically issued in June, and at that draft plan, you'll see how our project ranked in relation to the state and the estimated funding line of what will be funded. And at that point, there's a 30-day comment period open to the public where any comments, concerns, pleas can be presented at the Austin Water Development Board before they finalize that ranking list. And that would be the window to present any opportunities for public comment.
So I'd like to, thank you very much for that. I'd like to actively urge the board, Laguna Madre Water District, and the engineering firm to work together to let us know when those public comment periods are, what kind of local input we can have, and if you do have relationships within these appointed bodies, to use them in our best interest, and we hope that you'll do that. Okay. Thank you very much.
I have a couple questions from Zoom. Are there any federal or COVID funds that could be applied for?
Both clean water and drinking water state revolving funds are federally funded, so that's what we're pursuing at this time.
Right. Do we get to see the contract?
It'd be presented to our Laguna Madre Water District Board for consideration at that stage if we'd enter into an agreement. for the bonds.
And then one more question is, like, you say you're gonna work on half of a street at a time, but what happens if you're on a dead end? I mean, are you gonna keep quarter of the street open so people can go up and down?
The contractor has to maintain access, and of
Okay.
course, in
And that's-
realistic short-term times, we'll have to cut through and install something, but for the most part, access will be maintained throughout construction.
All right, thanks.
I'd like to bring up one thing before Joe comes up here. When John got up here and said that it was going to cost $35 million, everybody went, where did that $35 million come from? But if you guys put your calculators, get your calculator on your phone, you put it all together at the rates at the 125,000, and you were not counting on the homes that are out there that are well over $300,000. Some of them are $500,000. By the time all this is said and done, we will have paid well over $70 million. So you guys can put your numbers to it. I've put numbers to it. Others have put numbers to it. You can ask our resident accountant. I'm sure she will help you. I didn't mean to give you more work, Barbara, but that's how much we'll end up paying when it's all said and done. So it's well over what John came out here and said, the 20.6 million. Just like any other deal would come about, we've got interest rate on it, and we've got 30 years involved. So yes, we would pay well over $70 million if everything goes well. Go ahead, Joe.
I told myself I wouldn't even be at this meeting, much less than speak at it. But here I am. I gotta say, there are so many gray areas that we're looking at in our declarations and bylaws that we're violating with this. So many gray areas. Now you can argue that, and you can argue it with a lawsuit. The other thing is, we have not considered the inflation cost on this. With the way our economy is right now, this isn't going to be $21 million, guys. You're kidding yourselves. That's what you're looking at now. You might want to double that. The point being, I came to a conclusion, and I'll tell you that conclusion in a minute. But if I did a little calculation while I was listening to the board, to our session here, on $21 million. If you took that, divided it by 1,024, and strung it out for 30 years, you could do a special assessment in what we have already in our bylaws, a little over $600. You can do that with no interest. The only thing you have to do is pace yourself every year getting things accomplished. That being said, I don't think we have the means to do this at this point. We're going to be $2 million in the infrastructure fund. Why is that? Because in 2017, we changed our declaration and bylaws to make that happen, to be able to put $430,000 into the infrastructure fund. We wouldn't have $60,000 in it at this point if that hadn't happened. So we have money in the bank. I don't believe that anybody, no entity in Texas is going to shut us down. I don't think they will. They will tell us what we're in violation of. They will tell us what we need to do, and we can take our infrastructure money and do it.
as they call for. Period. And that being said, no one's been ill, no one's died, no one's had a problem with our water up to this point. Matter of fact, we've had more problems with, and I love you guys, I really do, I love you two guys especially. The Laguna Madre Water District has made it times where we had to boil water because of their faults. It's not to say we won't have bad water by putting new infrastructure in. And then, when you get the aspect of so much money we're spending for repairs, that's not quite right. It's been less and less because I get the one calls on the water being shut off. Well, not every day lately. It's been every day a year ago, but not this year. It's been like once every other week, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. But, well, you can argue. You can make your rid of calls all you want. My point is this. We repair as we go. And why not we continue that? We keep our solvency in this part. We do this loan. There is no solvency. There is no thing that we can hang our hat on and tell people to come into this park for. That's my point. And on top of that, this is just for the water and putting in sewers where they don't belong because they gotta be new. This is, we have electrical problems. We have road problems. They aren't gonna do all the roads on the repairs. And if they are, how long is this gonna be? It's not gonna be 3 years, it's not gonna be 2 years, it's not gonna be 1 year. It's gonna be 20 years maybe. I don't know. But my point is that no one knows. No one can give us a fact on the cost, a permanent cost, or completion time. So my position on this is to forget about it. Pay for what breaks, and let them tell us what we need to repair. That's it. Thank you.
Well, I got a lot of friends out there.
I'm Larry Hodges, 864. We've been owners here for 3 years. I was under the understanding that when they did the infrastructure problem, that it would include electric and maybe even television cable. Are those issues that are going to be addressed? Are they in this package at all? Is that something else that's going to happen down the road? Or is it even needed?
No, it is not included in this project. We are working closely with AEP, and they are working on their plans to also do it during this time period. Exact cost, I can't tell you. I'm thinking that it's not going to cost us more than getting your house itself up to code, but it's not a done deal yet, so we can't say it's a done deal.
But then we're looking at individual costs per house.
The only individual cost per house would be to get your meter loop, main breaker up to today's standard, so it'll pass today's electrical code.
Has any estimate floated around about what each owner is an average of what he would cost?
Well, when we started the project, sir, we had looked into that, and it was going to be approximately $1,500. That was approximately 3 to 4 years ago. We had negotiated a deal with an electrical licensed contractor, And he said if we gave him all the work that he could do it for about $800 for all of them. That was 4 years ago. I can't tell you what it would cost us now. It would probably be closer to the $1,500 that was originally put out to the people.
But the idea is at the same time that this other infrastructure.
That's the ultimate goal, is for them to work with Randy and his team to put that in the ground and move it out to the street also, and also repair some of the transformers. Right now, as we speak, there's a lot of areas that had as many as 7 to 8 homes on one transformer. They were bringing certain things up to date to where they're going to get us to like 4 on a transformer, which would eliminate a lot of the flickering and that kind of stuff. Those are things that I hate to say it like this, but they've allowed a lot of the lines to be run under the street and things like that, and up until about the houses and the front drives and things like that. And up until about 2 years ago, they changed their view on the way things should be done and are holding us to the same standards as any other municipality. So at that point, we would have to, if you were going to upgrade, do exactly as they asked in order to get your new meter put on your home.
Is this optional, or is it going to be mandatory for each homeowner?
No, let me stop it just for a second. Just so everybody understands the difference between AEP and Laguna Madre, AEP owns the electrical system, so they're responsible for getting that up to code. We own the water system, and that's why we're going through this problem. When you bought here, it's like when I bought here, I just assumed that it was like every place else. The water, you flush your toilet, it flushes. You turn your water, it turns on. I didn't know that we owned our own water system. All we did was buy water from Laguna Madre. We had to fix everything on our own. I didn't know that. So that is the main difference. Now I want to go back to the infrastructure. If it gets down to AEP, and you're talking about that $1,500 a person, it's 1,030 homes. You multiply that out, it's $1.8 million. We've got $2 million in the infrastructure fund. There's no reason why a board at that time could eliminate that burden from the homeowner and say, we'll cover that. I can't guarantee that's going to happen, but there's no reason why it couldn't.
Thank you. Gundy Gunderson, lot 1120. I hate to tell you, friends, but you're looking at an assessment of over $2,000 a year. Very few of us own a home of $100,000 or of $120,000. Still going to be $2,000 a year. If back in 17, if we had gone ahead and assessed that $2,000, we wouldn't need to be having this because we'd have enough money in our infrastructure to get a loan. Because we'd have over 50% of it. And I think banks would have done loan it to us. The other part of this is what I'm going to call an assessment, is a tax. Going to be added to your tax already. You already have a water and sewer tax, so it's an additional one. Not only that, but we're also going to have meters. The meters are going to run approximately $41 a month minimum. On 1,024, that's $300,000 or $432,000 a year. It's not going to make a difference in what we pay, or very little difference, because we're still going to have the swimming pool, and the golf course, and have all the sprinkler systems. So it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. I can tell you right now, there's 2 votes against this.
Bob Wheeler, lot number 97, and I heard a little while ago that after we get this all taken care of, that we have to go register with the Laguna Madre a water district, and that means that whenever we register, we will have to pay for a meter and for other things. Am I mistaken? And if I am not mistaken, how much will it cost us to hook up to the water system?
Good afternoon. Yes, in the project budget or scope, it has the water meters and the connections. It's just for the individual meters, it's going to have an assigned person, so the owner would need to be registered with Laguna Madre for that.
But what I'm wanting to know is how much is that going to cost us?
There will be no cost for that meter. There will be the monthly usage cost, but no cost for the installation.
Very good. Thank you.
As I've sat here and listened to people, I've made some notes, and I just want to share with everybody some of my experience. Previously, I was on a board of a much smaller association in Minnesota, and life was good. We were extremely happy. There was no issues. Everybody got along. And darn, if the state of Minnesota didn't come in with the Department of Health and look at us and say, oh, we're going to write you up for, I don't remember, I think it was like 18 violations. And one of the biggest violations was our water system and our sewer were not conforming. So not only did the state look at us, EPA looked at us. We had 2 years to bring our infrastructure up to code. Being an association, we could not get financed. There wasn't a bank that would even talk to us about being financed. So we went out and we thought we're going to take this project on ourselves, which we ultimately did. And as soon as we hired contractors, they said, okay, we want to be paid 50% before we start. We want to be paid 25% when the project is done, or halfway done, and the rest when it's completed. And it's going to be completed in 6 months. At that time, we had no option but to go out to the association and assess everybody in advance to pay 100% for a project. There was no take your time, there was no pay it over 30 years, there was nothing. It was a cold, hard reality. Was it painful? Extremely painful. Did it accomplish good things? Yes, it did. When we were done, there was huge light at the end of the tunnel. Our property values were quite a bit higher. We had good infrastructure. You didn't have to worry about water or toilet. So that's some of my experience with what happens in associations when you're on these kind of projects. Some of my other notes I'm just going to go over real quick. If you go out today and you buy a car or a house and you finance it, if you do the math and you look at what that cost you when you're done with your interest, it's scary. It's no different here, except they've already told us our dollars, including interest, so we know that already. As far as special assessments go, as I sit here and listen, I heard a lot of inequity. And I heard that, okay, several years ago, we were going to do this and we were going to assess everybody, but we weren't going to fix the entire park. So at that point, the sea cottages weren't going to be fixed, but they were going to be assessed. I don't see where the equity is in that. When I moved into LIV, the thing that surprised me, and pleasantly surprised me, is like, I don't pay for my own water. I can use all the water I want. So the 2 empty lots across from me, they're paying for my water. Did I like it? Yes. Was it equitable? No. I think that going forward with the project as it stands is ultimately our best option to accomplish it relatively quickly, and spread the cost out amongst everybody evenly. And I say that, and I know people with bigger houses are going to pay more, but I can't, in my heart or soul, understand why an empty lot should pay the same for an infrastructure update as a brand new 3-bedroom, 3-bath home.
Joe, before you go, is there anybody on Zoom we're lacking? I mean, can Joe, it looks like this might be the last person. We've been here a long time. Is there anybody else that's on Zoom we need to address? Okay, Joe, you're the final speaker. I'm sorry, you're the second to the final speaker.
Thank you. I appreciate your input on your previous board membership to an association. Unfortunately, I'm sure that that association is nowhere near what our association is. We have money in our infrastructure. You do not. EPA comes in and asks you to fix it, you have to scramble and ask the owners for a special assessment. We probably would not have to. And if we did, we have 2 monthly payments that we can assess along with the $2 million we have in our budget, in our infrastructure. My point's this: you're sitting in a bad situation. We are not. We need to fix this as they want us to fix. And we need to keep our money as long as we can during this recessionary. That's my opinion. And I'm sorry if I bring it out in such a way. I probably will not have any friends after this. But if you do it the way, you will not be in an extra, well, whatever, double on interest rates to get something you're not sure you're going to get. That's my statement.
Thank you.
Anna McKinney, 1096. If anyone's aware of the fires in Texas, people who've been burned out, when they try to rebuild, they are being held to a higher standard that they can't afford. So they're really suffering because they had a major cataclysmic event. Here we have, if we have one hurricane or one huge wind or one major event, it can shut us down. And all of a sudden, we're no longer under the radar. EPA, everyone will see us, and they'll know we are non-compliance. It might affect your homeowner's insurance. It might affect other aspects of loans you're trying to get. It certainly will affect your being able to rent your property or just live in your property. So my mother-in-law 15 years ago said, oh, it's just always been like that. And she stuck her head in the sand and decided not to do anything. Didn't want to pay for it. And if we do the same thing again today, we are just sticking our heads in the sand and saying, oh, we can't do it. If we don't try and if we don't put our hearts into it, and I'm wondering if Laguna Madre even wants to deal with this anymore after what I've been hearing. So I'm begging you to say, if not now, when? We just have to get it done. And if we have an event in the meantime before 2024, at least Laguna Madre might be willing to come in and help us out. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to thank everybody that came out. I'm also thankful we had security and didn't even need them, which was awesome. Everybody's got an opinion on this, and there is no right or wrong. I appreciate everybody, the way they professionally came up and spoke on this. That's why it's going to be a vote. You either vote yes, you vote no. Whatever happens, it's the majority speaks. I appreciate everybody coming. Hopefully we'll do another one of these. If you have any questions that you thought of that did not be addressed, just write it on a sheet of paper and either email it to Fred or drop it off at the front office. And we have another one of these, we can address it. Hopefully we'll even get more answers. I'll give it to Joy.
And I had some printouts, but I guess I didn't have them printed out enough, so we're gonna email them, and if you don't get emailed, there'll be some at the Welcome Center to pick up.
I'd like to say a little bit about what I think about this project. I only see two ways for us to actually get it accomplished. And it's got to be accomplished. They can, at any time, come in and shut a complete system down. Normally, they'll come in and give us a warning and say you have it fixed within so many days, months, years. But they can come in and shut it down. Okay, our options that we have is to pay as you go. Okay, it's taken us 5 years to get $1.7 million. 1.6, 1.7, that range. Okay, how many years do we think it's actually gonna take us to save up 14 million thereabouts to do the project ourselves? In which, I don't think that that we can do the project and do it as it needs to be, and wind up with a good system when we get done. Because we screwed up like a lot of things we've done. I think the only option that we have is to vote yes on this project and get it done as best we can.